Boom! We are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Life as a Chad YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be. And of course, however you may be listening. Some interesting news out of Britain. Some protests, riots have erupted. And yet again, this proves, of course, that we do indeed live in interesting times. So I'm going to be giving my take on it. Of course, I can't, unfortunately, give my pure, unadulterated take on it, but I'm going to do my best to say what I have to say concerning it. But before I do, I want to ask you guys to consider smashing that subscribe button. At the very least, like, comment. Let me know what you guys think about all of this. So before I begin, I think it's important to give some context, some good old-fashioned contextualization. Obviously, within Western countries, one of the leading topics has been immigration, specifically illegal immigration. And a lot of individuals feel disenfranchised. We've seen this in America. We've seen this in France. We've seen it in England. Of course, England elected Boris Johnson way back when. They thought that he was going to take care of this situation. I don't think it resulted in what a lot of people within England were hoping for. Most recently, they have had the Brexit party. And of course, England did eventually leave the EU, which I think a lot of people would see immigration and the EU as two sides of the same coin. You had Nigel Farage receive a massive amount of support, especially in a short period of time. And the party, I think, outperformed a lot of people's expectations. And they probably could have done even better had, much like France, Britain did not have all of the parties team up against Nigel Farage. And really what this illustrates, and multiple times I tried to record a France video. I don't know if I ended up posting it or not. But Europe is different from America. Obviously, I live in America, or I am American, in that, and I'm not sure if this is every single European nation, but it's definitely a lot of the major ones. They have a multi-party system, more than two. In America, you only have a dominant two-party system. Democrats, Republicans, Democrats, Republicans. Sure, you could argue that you have libertarians. Of course, you have socialists. But what ends up happening is socialists end up being a part of the Democrat Party, and libertarians oftentimes end up being a part of the Republican Party. Not conservative, because they're obviously not conservative, but they end up being a part of the Republican Party, such as Rand Paul or Ron Paul, whichever one it is. I think it's Rand Paul. Now, you do have, even within that, you do have more leftist-leaning libertarians and more right-leaning libertarians, but still. And for example, another example for the Democrat Party would, of course, be Bernie Sanders, who by all accounts is very, very leftist, dare I say socialist. And of course, he has been a part of the Democratic Party for much, if not all, of his political career. So that is what happens in America. And in Europe, you end up having a situation because of the more than two-party system. What you end up seeing is multiple parties teaming up strategically against a certain party that they are against. And what this really clarifies is what it boils down to is it's the establishment and whatever that umbrella looks like. And even within America, you see this, but it's in America, it's a little bit more nuanced because in America, you have establishment members on the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. And you also have individuals that are dissidents. Now, I would argue that there's not too many dissidents within mainstream politics in America, but still. And in Europe, this really crystallizes because when you have a legitimate contender vis-a-vis a Nigel Farage or a Marie Le Pen in France, they end up teaming up. The establishment ends up teaming up against who they see as the major threat, the non-establishment outsider. And within America, the reason why Donald Trump was so popular was because he was seen as an outsider. He was seen as a dissident. I even think for a little while, Boris Johnson was probably seen as that as well. A lot of people are trying to categorize Boris Johnson, especially his competition, as a British version of Donald Trump. Now, in the end, did it end up being that? No. Donald Trump, I would argue, is as establishment as he's ever been. He's only gotten more and more establishment. Whether that's him or the people he surrounds himself with, it doesn't really matter. Nonetheless, the result is the same. What he puts out into the ethosphere is establishment talking points. And so, all the same, you have the silent majority within these Western nations who are extremely patriotic, who a lot of them are members of the working class, the middle class, and they hate seeing individuals from other countries, often third world countries, that have major issues, major flaws. There's a reason why they are categorized as third world countries. And these individuals feel disenfranchised. They feel as though nobody represents them, truly. For a little while there, and even still, a lot of them did feel represented by Donald Trump, although I would argue that that has only dwindled since 2015, 2016, as Trump has actually held office. But at least initially, that was the appeal. And the bottom line is these people do not feel represented. And they feel that the nation that they love is being handed away. The keys to this nation is being handed away and given away. A lot of these people see their nation disintegrating much in the same way as what we have seen in the history books of other great powers. And they obviously feel upset, and it bothers them. They're patriotic. They love the nation that they are from. Now, broadly speaking, when I refer to the establishment, I refer to one major group. I'm not going to name them. Some people would refer to them as globalists, but I would articulate that even further and use a different group of people for that. But for the sake of this video on YouTube, let's call them the establishment, the people who wield the power, who have the great families, the great names, which is fine. Every great power has great names and things like that. It's just their politics right now are not in the best interest of the people. And rather, the politics that they are taking on is this non-border, multicultural, multi-ethnic mindset that is designed to disintegrate the identity of nations, nation states. And understandably so, people do not like that. And obviously, one of the major groups that has, especially in Europe, but this has been the case in America as well, that is infiltrated has been individuals from the Middle East. Now, my take regarding all of this within Britain, and a lot of this is attached to America as well, is everybody needs to take a breath. Okay. Some of these concerns and issues are valid. In fact, most of them are valid. But one thing that I have learned as I have tuned into politics as an adult is that there are people behind the scenes, and I've said this in many videos. This is the true red pill. There are many people behind the scenes that you may not see right now or initially, where if you mention them, you will be canceled, that are calling the shots and making things happen. And so their primary motivation is to get people in an uproar, to get them stirred up. And if you, and I've said this many, many, many times, if you don't think that some of these individuals in some of these high power positions do not have strategies, do not have mindsets in which to implement and continue to wield their power, you are mistaken. You are sadly ignorant. And it is not beyond these people to orchestrate false flags in order for a bigger scheme to take root. For example, with this current British situation, from what I can tell, at least initially, I think that this, while on the streets is an organic frustration, I believe that the flames of this are being sparked both before sparking an organic upsetness or an organic issue that people hold with the things that are currently going on within the West. And they are not only fanning the flames, or they did not only fan the flames initially, they are completely just making it. I mean, they're putting gas on this thing. They're gassing this shit up to make people emotional and to do things that they will be able to come down hard on them, much like happened on the infamous day in America, the 6th of whatever month it was. I know what month it was, but I'm not going to say it because it's YouTube. These operatives orchestrated this to be able to persecute and come down hard down the line, or come down harder down the line on things like free speech, on conservatism, on nationalism, things that they view as legitimate threats against the power that they wield. And that is what you need to realize and really need to add to your viewpoint for these major events that happen within America and abroad in other Western nations. is that these people that hold power, it is not above them to take advantage of situations to clamp down hard on things that are perceived threats to them. And yes, nationalism is a threat to their power, their globalist, non-border mindset. And so what I would say is you need to be more stoic and more patient and more critical in your evaluation of what is going on, and not allow yourself to respond emotionally and just, you see something on the internet and you go, up, this is my chance. This is my chance. Let me go throw something through somebody's window. And no, you don't need to do that. Okay. That's what they want you to do. They want you to have this emotional response where they're able to basically have a couple 100,000 nationalists or people who don't support them to come out of the woodworks and smash a few buildings in order to come down hard on them, identify them, and put them in jail, and then come down harder on free speech, on nationalism, and things like that. You need to start viewing things in this way. A lot of people, for the amount of like TV shows that they've watched, like, for example, like House of Cards or Game of Thrones or whatever political drama that you've seen, for the amount of political dramas that people have seen in the West, they are surprisingly ignorant to how people within positions of power implement said power or weaponize said power. They are strategic. Are they as smart as some people think they are? Yes and no. In some ways they are, in some ways they're not. But they are self-interested. As Tyrion Lannister points out in Game of Thrones, people are self-interested. I think it was season 6 of Game of Thrones. He's talking about the masters, that he was appealing to their self-interest, that everybody has a self-interest. And that is certainly true, and is even more so true nowadays. But oddly enough, for the amount of TV shows that people have watched with this ideal personified, they are surprisingly ignorant and naive to this being a reality in real life. So you need to take a breath, relax, and not be stupid in your approach to some of these things, because they will try to utilize it and clamp down and take it out on you. They want you to respond and react emotionally. What you guys also need to understand is we do not yield the power in all of the major power sources. Yes, in America, Donald Trump was elected, but that was pretty much the only avenue in which there was power that was held within our worldview. If you look at the university system, if you look at the media, if you look at Hollywood, if you look at journalism, it is not wielded by us, okay? It is not wielded by us. And so I say that to say we need to be smarter. We need to be much more calculated. We need to outwit them. That is the only way that we are going to be able to win our nation back and win our society back. The battle of the culture war. We're not going to win by acting like liberals. I used to think to myself as a young conservative, I used to think to myself, well, shit, why don't we do, I used to tell myself, especially when I was in college, man, I wish that conservatives would protest much more. But now that I'm older, I realize that that was a foolish notion. And the reason being is because when liberals protest, they're basically protesting themselves. because they are the ones that are in power. Their worldview is the one that is in power, not the other way around. There's no stakes to their protest. There's no real threat to their protest. But there is to conservatives, which means you have to be much more calculated. You have to be much smarter. And the last thing before I read an article from the Revolver is our number one goal needs to be to change the consciousness. Okay. We're not going to take back America and take back the West through protesting or the same means that the left expresses their power. We're not going to do that. We're not going to be as successful doing what they do. And in fact, there's a lot of educational source material, literature on this fact that conservatives cannot be successful in their strategy if they are trying to do the same sort of things that liberals are trying to do or that leftists are trying to do, because the dichotomy is different. The stakes that we both experience are different. We're coming to the table from different circumstances, from different realities. So we can't do what they do. All right, let's take a read of this article. There's not really much more to be said on this. I just caution you guys to just take a breath. Take a fucking breath. Go have a prayer. Go have a smoke. Okay. And relax, because they want you to respond in a emotional, off your rocker manner. Okay. Britain has erupted into chaos this week after violent riots have taken hold of the country, leaving police officers with broken bones, buildings set on fire, and shops looted. This weekend, dozens of protests were planned across Britain, with police forces on standby for more scenes of disruption. It comes as the country has been engulfed by a week of violent riots, sparked by the Southport stabbing frenzy at a Taylor Swift-themed dance party left 3 little girls dead on Monday. This is from the Daily Mail. By Tuesday, violent protesters and members of the far-right descended on the streets of the Merseyside town surrounding a local mosque after misinformation spread that the killer had been a migrant who arrived on a small boat. And this is the problem, guys. This is the strategy that they implement to get you guys to do stupid things, okay? Have Muslims been hostile to Christians at different points in history? Yes. Okay. But can you really blame them for coming to the West? Honestly. And I used to not have the best outlook on them myself, but they are not the enemy. Okay. They are not the enemy. Do all of them do good things? Of course not. Do all of them do bad things? No. Do I agree in their illegal immigration? Of course not. But they are just trying to have a better life. It doesn't excuse it, but I say that to say that they are not the enemy. The enemy are the elites who allow for the system that allows this, okay? They are the enemies. And they want us to look towards Muslims as our enemy so we don't see the real enemy behind what is going on. Since then, more anarchy has been seen across the country, with many gathering in London on Wednesday for a protest outside Whitehall. And this weekend, there have been further planned protests and eruptions of violence, with anti-immigration protests taking place in Belfast, Manchester, and Leeds, to name a few. In the last 48 hours alone, police forces have arrested more than 100 people as they try and grapple with the unprecedented levels of anarchy. And this afternoon, more protests kicked off in Rotherham with an angry mob setting fire to Holiday Inn Hotel where migrants stayed. More are also expected in Rushmore, Weymouth, Middlesbrough, and Lancaster this afternoon. Fuck you! Who the fuck are you? So, anyways, guys, that's the story. Be careful out there, guys. Be smarter. Be smarter. Okay. Don't play in to the hands of the elite in the game that they are trying to have you play and the mistakes that they're trying to have you make. Okay. That is the main message that I would have regarding this video. Okay. Be smarter. Think about things. Don't respond so emotionally, because oftentimes there are other pieces of relevant information that sadly you are not privy to. And you always need to keep that in mind before deciding to act in an irrational manner. All right, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to smash that subscribe button, like, comment, share. You guys know the drill. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow in facts or feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. I love you, kings. See you guys next time. Christ is king. Peace.